Good afternoon also from my side. My name is Zornitsa Manolova, and I'm heading the data quality management and data science team at the Global Legal Entity Identifier Foundation, or for short, GLEIF. Could you please give me a sign who of you have heard about GLEIF and the LEI? Very good. Then I have something to tell you today. That's very promising. Okay, today I will talk about legal names, legal entity identification, legal entity identifiers, give you a brief look into the global LEI system, and of course I will spend time talking about AI, otherwise I wouldn't be here. And a tool that we have called Legal Entity Name Understanding, or for short, LENO. Maybe it is also good to give you a little bit of my background. So I joined GLEIF in 2018, and before that I was with forensic technology at PwC, where I spent quite a lot of time on projects, of course, at the customers, doing forensic analytics. And most of those projects were dedicated to anti-money laundering or sanctions investigations, mostly driven by the regulators like OFAC, DOJ. And most of the time there I had to deal with name matching, and we need to deal with challenges like, is the entity on the left side, let's say the customer database, the same entity as on the sanction list? And it sounds like a simple problem, and I can tell you it is not, especially when it comes also to data quality. And I'm not French, I'm Bulgarian, but I'm a foodie, so I could very much identify myself also with your example of the data and the ingredients you have. So most of the time we had to deal with, not the best quality data. So let's look what is behind a name. So I brought an example. 8 legal entity names, future capitals, all the same. Okay. In some cases, we have also legal forms that in some countries also must be part of the name, but depending on the legal form itself and the country. So we have GmbH, we have BV, we have Gesellschaft mit beschränkter Haftung. For those of you who are German, may make the link to GmbH. Then we have SRL, SPA, and then 3 LLCs. So this looks pretty much the same, limited liability companies, but we still don't know. So where these companies have their address? It's Leopoldstraße, Rue Leopold, and Leopold Street. Everything sounds very similar. Different languages maybe, but also translation could play a role. And then it comes, okay. We add also the city and the country of the address, but is this still the same entity? I mean, or are they different entities? I mean, in Europe, you can take your future capitals GmbH and go to Brussels and keep the name and the legal form, but just change the address. So this is still quite of a challenge. And in a perfect world, we'll probably have a legal entity identifier, a global one, assigned to every single business in the world, where we can easily identify each organization uniquely. Because, I mean, the names are distinct within certain environment and ecosystem. As, for example, the Leopoldstrasse is distinct in Munich, but is not unique on a more global scale. So there is still a challenge, and let me give you an example. It sounds like still quite simple problem, but let me give you an example. During my time at PwC and spending some time at the banks, we had a situation where there was a transaction, and those transactions, as you know, banking is highly regulated, needs to go through the embargo system and be scanned against a sanctions list or PEP list or whatsoever other watch list. And this transaction was blocked and waited for a manual review, because at the end it comes to the name of the entity and some additional information that needs to be screened by a person and to decide, make the decision, is it okay to go through the transaction, or it might be doing business that we are not allowed to do. So due to the high queue of similar blocked transactions, this one stayed there for 2 weeks. And then when it was reviewed and supposed to go its way further, it was released, then the system said, you expired. So there's a date for the transactions to be processed. And it needs to go back and to be generated again, to send again to the embargo system, and so far and so forth. So how could we, and of course, since then, technology made progression, but this is still an issue. And how could we help with certain additional understanding of the names? And I will talk today a lot about the name and the legal form of the entity, that the legal form could be a very good indicator if the entity is the same or not. Because Future Capital's limited liability company is not the same as Future Capital's foundation or a public company. But somebody needs to be able to make this distinguishing, and in an optimal way also to do this in an automated, digitized way. Okay, so far to the problem or challenge. As we notice, I would like to give you a little bit of the history and where the vLEI and the GLEIF comes. So after the Lehman Brothers collapsed, the regulators of the world ask the financial institutions, okay, what is your risk exposure after the collapse of Lehman Brothers? Could you please provide us with this information within 2 months, let's say? I said, difficult. 2 months, we cannot do this because we don't have the data. We don't know the corporate structures of the entities that are involved. And this was a big issue. And then G20 said, okay, we need to figure a way around this and to not let it happen again. So FSB was tasked to create a list of measurements to address the issue. And one of these measurements was creating a global legal entity identifier, and also to support the operations in the system and the stability of the system. The Global Legal Entity Identifier Foundation, or GLEIF, was established by FSB in 2014. So we have 10th anniversary this month, actually. GLEIF is a non-for-profit Swiss foundation. We managed a network of partners. These are the vLEI issuing organizations. We, as GLEIF, we don't issue vLEIs or these identifiers. Our partners, also called LUUs or local operating units, are doing this. We have a board of 16 independent directors, and we are also overseen by a body called Regulatory Oversight Committee, or for short ROC, in which more than 65 financial market regulators are participating, 19 observers from more than 50 countries. And this year, or as of today, we have more than, meanwhile, 2.6 million issued LEIs. Okay, what is an LEI? LEI is a ISO standard, 17442. It is a machine-readable 20 characters alphanumeric code. You can see it here. And what you see also, you see a screenshot from our website and the example of Nestle. The LEI is persistent, a lifelong identifier. It doesn't change. It doesn't hold any logic in the generated character string. It connects to reference data and try to provide or provides the answers to the question who is who. So as you can see here, we have the name of Nestle. We have also the local register where it is registered. We carry also the local identifier of the organization. We have the legal jurisdiction, which might be also different from the address that is usually provided in all the databases. People carry the data. We have the legal form, some additional information, the address. We have also mapping initiatives to other identifiers like the BIC or the ISIN or S&P Global Company or Open Cooperative and all. But not only that, we also provide information about the corporate structure. If you remember who owns whom, and LEI was basically designed to prevent a situation like the one with the Lehman Brothers. So there is information about direct and ultima parent. There is information about branches and headquarters relationships. We also hold information about what we call fund relationships. This includes umbrella structures or relationships between the fund managing organization and the funds they manage. The LEI data is meant to be a public good, and it is free and open to use. You don't even need to create an account to access the data. You can use the GUI that I'm just showing, or you can also use the API and create your own applications around it. And we have, of course, a data dump. So, identifying legal forms. As I mentioned, it is still a fact that legal entities identify themselves mostly with their name. And if we have the legal form next to it, it gives a pretty good indication whether, when we compare two names, whether it is the same entity or not. And it is often coming with the name. So it should be pretty easy, right, to distinguish the legal forms. If you have language proficiency and domain knowledge, and here's an example in Dutch, and I don't speak Dutch, but I think some of you do. And there are two strings, I would call them. Maybe the first one is an entity, the second one looks to me rather than address, I'm not sure. Yeah. But those of you who have Dutch knowledge would probably identify that the legal form is the same, and the one is abbreviation, and the other is the spelled, written out, full form. So how could we overcome this challenge with identifying the legal form, and why it is important? I already mentioned it. So if we look at the example of Nestlé, we see also here that we have in the name SA, which stands for Società Anonyma. But if you look in the data element entity legal form, you see something that looks like, in this case, by coincidence, like a Roman number. It is not. It is something called ELF code, or entity legal form code. And it is a unique identifier for legal forms across the globe. And it is another standard we are using in our data. It is an ISO standard. It is a unique alphanumeric code, again, of 4 digits this time. And it is part of every single record of the LEI data. So we tend to have, or aim to have, very standardized data set and reference data. So where possible, we use standards. Currently, the ELF code list contains 3,430 entity legal forms in 190 jurisdictions worldwide. And just to give you a better overview how it looks like, so this here is an example of the list of this standard. And it was introduced in November 2017. And it happened that GLEIF also acts as the secretariat of the maintenance agency, so we are very much involved in the creation of this list, and we also leverage the expertise of our partners, the LEI issuing organization, who are also spread across the globe. So you can see here already that a limited liability partnership in Canada has a different code than the one in the United States and Alaska. And the one in Delaware, also limited liability partnership, is different from the one in New York. Why so? Because there are different legal descriptions, different legal liabilities attached to them. So the companies with the examples that I had on the first page, the future capitals in New York, limited liability company in New York, and the future capitals limited liability company in Delaware, they are different organizations. And this creates a little bit of challenge to identify, to distinguish between those. Okay, so now let's come to the more exciting part, hopefully. So we created a tool called Lino, but what questions kept us busy to come to this tool? Why at all we make this step to go there? As I mentioned, my background kept me, it was keeping me busy again, as we also have different mapping exercises with the LEI and other data sets. So one of the questions was, how can we simplify these exercises? How can we improve the accuracy of them? How can we do not make so much about, there's always a trade-off when you do these kind of exercises using fuzzy logic. Do I want to find all the pairs that map together and how many false positive can I handle with the manpower I have. The example with a bank with a stuck transaction for 2 weeks. How could we improve also the identification of legal entities in general? Or also this time I had the question where we always talk about we need good data quality in order to make the algorithm work well. And as a head of data quality management, I had the question, what can AI do for me and improve the data quality? Also, how can we help other organizations to standardize more their data sets and also promote the standard for legal form, for entity legal forms, and so forth and so forth. So there were a couple of questions that were wanted to answer. And basically what we did is we took the LEI data, we used the entity legal form code as a label, and we used the legal name part of the record as the attributes. And this was how we trained the model together with our partners from Sociovastics, identifying the entity legal form code out of the legal name. When we had the model and tested it, we also took the model and run it against our entire data set, and then created the confusion matrix, where we saw, okay, what is in the data and what the model is suggesting does not match. So we need to look into those examples. We have a very rigorous data quality management program, and there we have a service called Challenge LEI Data, where everybody can, with piece of evidence, can challenge a record and say, oh, I think the value of this item is different. So this is what we did. We challenged our own data and let the LEI managing organizations or the issuing organizations verify what the model said to be right against what they have inserted in the data in the first place. And some of the challenges were rejected, some of the challenges were accepted, but this led to improved data quality. And of course, we could retrain the data model and make it even better. How this exactly work? So I brought a small demo. On the left bottom side, on the bottom left side, you can see, so we can basically insert a name, use the model for US Delaware, and then I will receive 3 suggestions with a score, which legal form code, entity legal form code would be the most appropriate. We just published also a scientific paper on arXiv. You can find Lino on GitHub repository and also on Hugging Face. Everything what we do is very transparent, and it is open source. Everybody can use it. This is basically part of our DNA as a non-for-profit organization. And again, it sounds kind of easy, but if we look at the last example, Gemeinde Klingenberg, there's no any kind of hint in the name what kind of entity legal form could that be. But based on the underlying data there, the model learned that the Gemeindes in Germany are usually Körperschaft des öffentlichen Rechts. And, okay, poor statistics, but you need to have it, or you need to have the legal background and the language background for it. And to make it a little bit more complicated, unfortunately, the best examples are in German language. But the traditional models will not be able to handle these examples. Unsere Kinder, unsere Zukunft, Stiftung der Volksbank Odenwald EG. It is a Stiftung, it is a foundation. It is not the eingetragene Gesellschaft. But most of the algorithms will take the last part of the string and go for it. Same situation, most of the examples are like this. Or Beteiligungsgesellschaft Bassmann & Co. MBH. I mean, we have the Gesellschaft part of the first word and then the mit beschränkter Haftung at the end. And then we have a and co, which most of the algorithms will represent or identify as a Kommanditgesellschaft. So it's a very niche product. It doesn't bring you the full end-to-end solution to entity identification, but brings quite a good piece of it to simplify the process and to be able to reduce afterwards the need for post-processing and manual review. So what are the benefits? When we did the first round of models, we didn't have used at that point of time even transformer models. At the end, the results that you see now that I'm presenting to you are based on transformer models, and these pushed the quality of the models a step further. But even with a traditional naive Bayes and other traditional machine learning models, we engaged with JP Morgan, and they tested the solution as part of their internal bigger model, and they gave us the feedback that they received a boost in their accuracy by having incorporated this small piece of tool there. And the first time we told the world about what we are doing, they also joined the press release together with us. But in any case, what are the benefits of using the ELF code and also using a tool like Lenu? Now, in the first place, if you now would like to introduce a new standard into your existing databases, it will take time. It could become also a multi-year project because somebody needs to go through every single record and identify and design and say, this is a GmbH in Germany and it has this code and so far and so forth. So these two will speed up the process of adopting such a standard. It will, using the ELF code, it will also help streamline your processes and make them more automated, machine-readable. The case of the stopped transaction maybe would have gone through if the system had these capabilities to identify, the entity on the sanction list is a limited liability partnership, and the one in the transaction is limited liability company in a totally different jurisdiction. So pass it through, not the same. It will help also increasing the standardization level of your own data, and also, of course, with this, it will increase also the data quality of the data. And with this, I'm at the end of my presentation and happy to engage in a lively discussion afterwards.